Not all prisons around the world are the same. While some serve stomach-churning meals like this, others have a tasty and healthy-looking menu, and where this prison crams inmates into every available inch of space, this one has private cells that look more like a hotel. With that, it's time to see for yourself what some of the worst and best prisons around the world really look like. When you think about prison, I bet most of you imagine endless iron bars, dark hallways, grim food, and an overwhelming sense of despair. Crowding. More than a staggering 10.74 million people are currently incarcerated. And with a figure that high, it's hardly surprising to learn that many prisons are bursting at the seams with convicted criminals. Although there are some that are well over capacity, even El Salvador's prisons pale in comparison to Manila City Jail, famously known as the most crowded jail in the world. It was built to incarcerate a mere 1,100 inmates. But the country's war on drugs saw that figure rise to a bar-busting 6,300. The United States boasts the highest prison population on Earth, and while they just about have the resources to house them all, it's not exactly a spacious arrangement, with their prison capacity at a snug 99.8%. While all inmates get a bed, privacy in the most populated state penitentiaries like California's San Quentin prison looks like an extremely rare commodity. Back in the 2000s, when the US prisons were at their most overcrowded, they had to invest in serious and made them sleep on triple-stack bunk beds. But not every prison in the world is crammed to the rafters. Many have been repurposed into swanky-looking hotels. The rooms may have been upgraded, but the cell doors and steel walkways haven't been touched. Food. You've probably heard plenty of horror stories about the perils of prison food. From being impossibly bland to pitiful portion sizes. And like the UK wasn't known for its terrible tank-on cuisine already, one prison in Warrington managed to make it worse. But it wasn't as bad as the state of the food on his plate. Baked beans on plain pasta, soggy fish on fries, lashings of liver, and whatever this ungodly combination is, painted a pretty bleak picture of British prison cuisine. But in the UK, that food allowance per person per day is just over £2. And yet over the other side of the world in Japan, a standard prison meal couldn't look any healthier. Here, the incarcerated eat whole grain barley mixed with rice, vegetable dishes, miso soup, and nutrient-rich proteins like whole grilled fish. These healthy and delicious-looking meals. Russian prisons don't just serve soup or borscht, although what they do serve instead doesn't sound much better. For a start, solid food is most definitely on the menu, though usually in the form of a bland porridge, cheap bread, unseasoned meat and vegetables. Russian authorities have been trying to find ways to make their meals even cheaper. Prisons have been encouraged to produce their own food in small agricultural bubbles. Then the US really brings the ugly. Because jail and prison food is set at a state level, the quality varies wildly. Take for instance a typical breakfast and dinner in Georgia's Gordon County Jail. At $1.77 per meal, inmates receive around 2,800 calories per day, complete with fruit juice and cereal for breakfast, cornbread and beans for dinner, and even cake for dessert. Although there's no lunch served in between, so to get all those calories in such tiny trays, those meals are probably very sugary and fatty. Cells. Most of you probably assume that all prison cells look the same with bars, bunks, and terrifyingly exposed toilets. Though they do differ around the world, in the US, this is exactly what new inmates can expect. For those trial in the state of New York, a cell in the famous Rikers Island jail offers none of the comforts of home. In the general population, these tiny breeze block rooms are made for one inmate each, and contain a toilet, a sink, a bed, and a heavily barred window. It's barely the bare necessities. The same can't be said for those in supermax prisons like Max Florence, Colorado, because these prisons are designed to hold some of the most dangerous criminals in America. Each inmate is assigned a single 7 by 12-foot room, within a movable bed, stool, and desk, all made out of concrete. They also have a shower set on a timer to prevent inmates flooding their cell, and a toilet with an inbuilt sink. The vast majority of the 400 prisoners held here are in solitary confinement for up to 23 hours a day, but it could be so much worse, as proven by the existence of Russia's Black Dolphin facility. This federal penal colony houses more than around 700 of Russia's most dangerous criminals. Inmates are held in cells that have thick steel doors, as well as bars separating the living space from the windows and the door. This effectively creates a cell within a cell, preventing them from rushing the guards at the doors, or trying to escape through a window. When they are permitted to leave their cells, they're bent over double by the guards, handcuffed, and frighteningly frog-marched out so that they can't really see where they're going. This is yet another precaution to prevent prisoners from mentally mapping the layout of the facility. Over in Norway, prisoners held in Skien prison have comparatively lavish-looking cells, complete with wooden furniture, curtains, ensuite bathrooms, and even electrical outputs for TV and game consoles. Cushy as it looks, prisoners in solitary confinement here are still locked away behind thick steel doors for up to 23 hours a day, but they're given DVDs and games to play, along with plenty of reading material. It almost makes the idea of serving a life sentence sound tolerable. One of which is Halden, a high-security prison where inmates have private rooms complete with flat-screen TVs and fridges. They can even borrow musical instruments to learn and to play at their leisure. Norway defends the idea that treating prisoners humanely is the key to reintroducing them to society. And despite what you may think, it seems to work. Norway has a repeat offense rate of just 20%. That's one of the lowest recidivism rates in the world. Who knew a few creature comforts could help put a stop to crime? Text washing, exercise. Fortunately, the United Nations has decreed that prisoners should be given at least 1 hour of exercise outside, weather permitting, every day. In California, where the weather is almost always glorious, inmates are usually led outside into concrete yards separated by 2 layers of chicken fencing, and topped with barbed wire. And in case inmates ever consider making a run for it, observation towers are posted nearby holding guards that are armed to the teeth with automatic weapons. Prisoners are free to do laps, play basketball, or use some of the stationary equipment for workouts like chin-ups and boxing. But over in Brazil, prison yards are often set up to let inmates indulge in the nation's favorite sport, soccer. While the pitches occasionally double up as space for drying laundry, facilities like this prison in Manaus has at least 3 separate concrete pitches for inmates to kick a ball around on. I wonder if the guards do a little Mexican wave every time they score a goal. While team sports are a great way to boost morale, the group exercises they do in Thailand look a lot more like torture. Despite all those strenuous-looking positions and the baking hot sun, these inmates are actually engaging in a little yoga. For both male and female inmates, the slow-moving, but when it comes to group exercise, the inmates that really steal the show are those from the Filipino Cebu Provincial Detention and Rehabilitation Center. The prison rose to fame back in 2007 when a video of hundreds of inmates performing a choreographed dance routine to Michael Jackson's Thriller went viral. It turned out that government security advisor Byron Garcia introduced the program for inmates to get an hour of exercise each day. And they didn't stop at Thriller. Up to 1,500 inmates participated in a fantastic variety of different routines, from the power stance pulling ballad of Queen's Radio Gaga to the hilarious dress-up dynamo of Sister Act's Hail Holy Queen. The dance program was a huge hit, and even inspired a film called Dance of the Steel Bars. Back in the terrifying confines of Russia's previously mentioned Black Dolphin prison, some inmates report being left in their cells for a full 24 hours a day. But on the off chance that they are let out, they're given 90 minutes to walk around a tiny bare concrete yard, though they won't get to feel the sun on their faces as each yard is built beneath a solid roof with walkways above so that guards can watch their every move.